What's up, everybody? Hold on. This IG's just. Oh my God, dude. I can't ever get it right. We can't ever get it right. All right, now it's last one, right? Oh my God. It's just not working. It's just not working. One day I'll be able to actually start the show and not have any technical difficulties. But I'm running out of space. I'm running out of chargers. What's up, Michigan girl? How are you? Fuck it. You know what? Jesus Christ, did you hear that? Everything's falling apart. We're trying to get the show started, and it's all falling apart. All right, here we go. You got sound now? I hope you got sound now, because Jesus Christ. I really don't feel like dealing with the Instagram shit anymore. It's getting to the point to where it's just annoying as hell just to try to keep everything charged up, and I can't even do it. Anyway, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Just Jordane Show. I'm your host, Paul Jordane, at the Just Jordane Show. We're over here hanging out. Make sure that you go on and click that like button, click that share button, all that other good stuff to help us include ourselves into the algorithm so that we can get blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. Anyway, guys, we're talking about pro wrestling here. What are some of your favorite memories from professional wrestling when you were younger that made you a lifelong fan? What made you a lifelong fan? What is it that really got you hooked onto wrestling? What is it? What was the big thing? Was it a feud? Was it a certain wrestler? Was it a promotion? What was it that really got you hooked into professional wrestling? What is it that made you see professional wrestling and you were like, oh man, this is my shit? What was it? What is it that made you realize that pro wrestling was your shit? That's what today's episode's about. We're going to be talking all day about wrestling, and you guys know these are always the fun episodes. We did have to start way earlier than normal because I'm going to start doing the show a lot earlier than normal. I do have to change the schedule. It's just a lot easier for me right now if I get the show knocked out and then I don't have to worry about too much later after that so that I can continue on and keep working and keep doing whatever I need to do, because I've got a lot of stuff that I need to do in the evenings now, and I need to make sure that I'm available for that. And in order for me to keep working and continue on this progress that we're all making together, because I think that we're all on the journey together and we're all making progress together, I feel like it's better for me to put myself and us in a position to where we will succeed. We're more likely to succeed. And so, yeah, we will be going a lot earlier, but that's okay if you can't be here live. You guys know you can always check the replay out on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Or Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, DLive. Odyssey, as soon as I figure out Odyssey, and then I'll start doing TikTok again so that I can try to up the viewers on that, because I know Dreama, my sister Dreama, she has like 10,000 subscribers on TikTok. Not that means anything, but at least you can promote your stuff to people, and then you can get some comments. And I really like the feedback. I like whenever we're talking back and forth about everything like that. I hope everybody's had a good day, though. It's been a pretty nice day here. It's been half as if it's going to rain, half as if it wasn't going to rain. And I do apologize. Yesterday's episode, if you guys were expecting one yesterday, we did do it, and we did it live. And if you were here with it, that was fun. That was a very, very fun episode. But it did get copyright slashed on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And that was CBS that took us out on that. So there's not really much that we could do about that. And, you know, CBS is CBS, and it is what it is. Anyway, we'll jump on back over here. Let's see. We'll refresh that. Everybody good over there before we get into it. Craig Weber said, seeing pro wrestling live when I was little and going to wrestling events today, and just how nice the pro wrestlers are to fans outside of the ring. And that's a huge thing there, right? That's actually a pretty huge thing. That's one of the biggest things that you can do. Stephanie McMahon, the old WWF, when Vince McMahon Sr. ran in the 70s. So Stephanie said that was her favorite. So Craig Weber seeing pro wrestling live when I was little. So if you see pro wrestling live when you're younger, especially if you're younger, it's probably going to hook you. Now, I saw pro wrestling when I was very young, but I didn't see it live. I saw it on television, and I was hooked from television. And take a wild guess who my favorite wrestler was whenever I was a young kid. My favorite wrestler whenever I was a young kid was Eddie Guerrero. It was Eddie Guerrero. I loved Eddie Guerrero. But that was after I started figuring out what I really liked and who I really liked. But the person who did get me hooked, of course, was Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan got me hooked. Hulk Hogan had me just wondering if could I do that? Could I figure out a way to be able to do that? That is awesome. And I didn't think that Hulk Hogan could be beat. I didn't think that there was anybody out there who could beat Hulk Hogan. This whole time, I was just thinking that it's a dream. It's all just a dream, and maybe you can't even reach it because you're not Hulk Hogan. You're not like that guy. You're not like that. Look at him. Look at him. It's Hulk Hogan. It's Hulk Hogan, you know? It's Hulk Hogan. But that was what I grew up on. And when I was a very young child, I was seeing it, and I was like, oh, man, this stuff is pretty damn cool. And then I remember getting a VHS tape that had a bunch of Hulk Hogan's matches on it. Or maybe it was a compilation of, like, WrestleMania's best matches. It was one of those compilation VHSs, that they would put a bunch of different matches on there. Because I remember the Steiner brothers versus the Samoans was a good match that was on there, and it was a really good match. And I'm sorry if I sound stuffy. My nose is running again, and I've got another freaking throat sore, and I'm coughing and all that other good shit. And don't worry, I've been tested for COVID. It was bronchitis, and that's, if anything, bronchitis doesn't want to fucking go away. That's very annoying, very annoying. So I'm sorry if I sound nasally. I definitely am nasally today. Anyway, Hulk Hogan was it. Hulk Hogan was the guy. He was the man, and he was the one that really made me. He was the one that really got me into it. And I was hooked ever since then. It was one of the biggest things that I could do. One of the most interesting things, because I remember arguing with my cousin, and he was saying that there's only one person who could beat Hulk Hogan. Nobody can beat Hulk Hogan except for one person. And that was the Ultimate Warrior. And whenever they had their match, and I saw the Ultimate Warrior beat Hulk Hogan, I was so confused. I did not understand what the hell was going on at all whatsoever. I was trying because I thought that Hulk Hogan was a wrestling god. I thought that he was JBL. I thought that he was untouchable. He could never lose. How could he ever lose? And he did. And he lost to the Ultimate Warrior. Now, he did get it back a couple of months later, a couple of years later, whenever it was that he got it back before he went to WCW. But it's just one of my memories that I had when I was a young kid. And Hulk Hogan really hooked me and made me interested in it to where I was watching. I remember seeing Hulk Hogan when I was a kid. I had to have seen one of the VHSs whenever he was wrestling Andre, and he was wrestling Sergeant Slaughter. I remember one of my favorite matches was him versus Sergeant Slaughter, and Sergeant Slaughter tried to cheat and used the flashbang fire, the fire paper, towards the end of the match. And, of course, Hulk Hogan found a way to get through it, but he used fire. He threw fire into his eyes and everything. So it was crazy. It was one of those things that it makes you want to be a part of it. Yeah, I want to get fire thrown into my eyes. Stephanie, I was 8 or 9 in the 70s. Yep. With the WWF. Vince McMahon, Sr. Krista, I watched with my grandfather. I watched with my grandmother. She told me it was real. So it was for me also. She used to get mad and so hyped. She loved $1 Million Man in the 70s. Ted DiBiase was the man in the 70s. He really was. Ted DiBiase was the shit in the 70s. And this was before he was the $1 Million Man. This was before all that. This was whenever he was still doing his wrestling stuff, but he didn't have that WWE gimmick. So he didn't have that $1 million man personality, which people do say now that Vince McMahon based that character off of himself, which is why he could say that, hey, he could buy his way out of anything because people do love money. And you know that legendary conversation that I think I heard it on I think it was a legendary story that Bruce Pritchard told about Vince McMahon being on a plane, and there was a guy, this was back whenever you could smoke cigarettes, and there was a guy smoking a cigarette and let me smoke away. As he was smoking, Vince McMahon was like, what if I give you $500? He was like, yeah, I laugh at $500. He was like, what if I give you $1,000? The guy was like, all right, I'll put my cigarette out for $1,000. Give me the $1,000. McMahon gave him the $1,000, and that shows you anybody has a price. And that's a really good, but Ted DiBiase was the perfect person to pull off that gimmick. He was the perfect person to do that. I mean, he did a fucking great job with it. So it's all just very, very fascinating how it all comes together. But I love, Krista, that you loved you loved Ted DiBiase before he was the $1 Million Man. But your favorite is Bret Hart. And Bret Hart's one of my favorites as well. Bret Hart's definitely one of the best. Definitely one of the best. Rick Morris. Hulk Hogan got me hooked too. Yes, I have 3 wrestlers that got me hooked. So, and that's where we're going through. So, but Hulk Hogan, first one. And I already did show you the third one, but there's a second one before we get back to the third one, and then we'll go through a little bit of feuds. But Hulk Hogan, definitely one of those. Stephanie, I remember when Hulk Hogan made his debut. That's pretty fucking badass, too. Being able to be there whenever Hulk Hogan made his debut. Now, was it when he debuted as Hulk Hogan? It had to be, right? It had to be. It sounds like it anyway. It seems like that would be it. But after Hulk Hogan, so I spent a little bit of time growing up, and then I was watching wrestling here and there, and I was always fascinated by it. I always loved wrestling. And then I remember watching WCW. I saw WCW, and WCW had Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero was walking out, and he was wrestling, I think, Psychosis. I think he was wrestling Psychosis that night. And to be fair, I had only seen WWE television up to that point. So the style of professional wrestling that I was used to was pretty much the WWE style, which is way more American-based theatrics, and we call it psychology in wrestling, but it's more so mind tricks and trying to get people really psychologically involved in it and have them enjoy it. But Eddie Guerrero, man, there was just something about Eddie Guerrero that I liked. And then every week I would continuously tune in so that I could see what Eddie Guerrero was up to. But then when I saw that Hulk Hogan was on the same show, dude, that was all it was for me. That was all it was for me because I was all in. I was all in. I was like, oh my God, this is the best. This is the best. Krista, gotta go. Glad I caught you. Glad we caught you too, Krista. Glad that we caught you too. Darnell. Oh shit, here we go. We got to catch up with some of these comments now. Stephanie, yes, but I saw it on TV. Yeah, but that's still cool that you saw it on TV, Stephanie. That's pretty badass. Mahoney Games. What's up, Mahoney Games? Our friend Mahoney Games. And over there, Heather. Mahoney Games and Heather is in the chat. Gotta Sparrows. We see you there as well. Everybody's hanging out. Mahoney Games, for me, it was HBK, Y2J, and everything for WCW. Yeah, HBK matches a lot of what was going into what was happening at WCW at the time because I loved pro wrestling, but I loved WWE. I loved like the Hulk Hogan stuff because I'm telling you guys, I was like 9 or 10, and I was very young, so I always had the WWE mind to me. But when I saw Eddie Guerrero and Psychosis wrestle, dude, when I saw them wrestle, it was so different. It was so different than what I was used to seeing. I was like, oh my God, I got to come back and see what these guys do again. I had no idea about Lucha Libre Wrestling. WCW introduced me to Lucha Libre Wrestling, and they introduced you to a lot of really, really good people. A lot of really, really good wrestlers that you wouldn't have heard of. Rey Mysterio. I loved Rey Mysterio. I was crazy about Rey Mysterio. More crazy about Eddie. For some reason, I connected with Eddie. Darnell, what's up, brother? Darnell said, hi, Paul. Hogan, Dusty, and Flair. Hogan, Dusty, Flair, and Bob Armstrong got me hooked. And if you guys don't know who Bob Armstrong is, that is the Road Dogg Jesse James's father, who is they're a wrestling. The Armstrong family is a legendary wrestling family from the South. Majority of us, just like Darnell Coolbreeze, because Darnell Coolbreeze is from the South, and I'm from the South as well. So we always had all of our pro wrestling stories about the Armstrongs, and all their stories are legendary there. What's up, Hysteria? Hysteria here, watching for the first time live. Thank you for joining, Hysteria. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you made it live. It's always, and I had to sometimes I have to throw some curveballs at you and try to see if I can get you guys motivated in the middle of the day to watch what we're up to. All right, continue on. Rick Morris had life-size poster of Hogan in my room when I was younger. Yes, exactly. And now, after I had the WCW thing, now WCW won me over and they pulled me on over. They pulled me over. I was in WCW. I was a WCW kid. And then, guess what happened? Guess what happened when I was a WCW kid through and through, and then all of a sudden, somebody went through some glass and busted some glass and started drinking beer and whooping his boss's ass. And me as a kid, I didn't like my teachers. I didn't like my principal. I was all into it. I was like, nobody can tell this guy what to do. I want to be like this. Stone Cold Steve Austin is my guy. Stone Cold Steve Austin is my guy. All I wanted to do was be like Stone Cold Steve Austin because nobody could tell him what to do. Not even his boss. Not even his boss could tell him what to do. Mahoney Games. When I was a kid, I would always ask my dad to skip the promos. I found them boring and just wanted to see guys beating each other up. Now promos are my favorite. Yeah, but that's the funny thing about it because you flip-flop sometimes because a lot of times I love the crazy athletic stuff from back when I was younger, but now it doesn't really do that much for me. Now it's not really that exciting. Now it's like, I've already seen you do that. I've already seen other people do that. I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in people that I care about and their struggles. I like people that I care about struggles. All right, guys. IHTP, I will BRB. IHTP, I know it's early, but IHTP will BRB. Hold on one sec, y'all. All right, okay. I hope I didn't take too long. Did anybody else say anything? What else we got here, guys? What else we got here? Michigan Girl said, Ultimate Warrior, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and you are my favorites. Well, thank you, Michigan Girl. I love it. And I do know that there are a few wrestlers on television who have told me that I was a big inspiration for them to get into pro wrestling because they liked what I was doing at the time, and they liked when I was in a tag team with my friend Bill Collier. So I know that I've affected more people like that too, but my goal is to affect more of us because I love my wrestling people. I'm a wrestling guy. I'm a wrestling person, and I love my wrestling people. So That's my motivation, is to try to get us all ready to go and get motivated to get us in here. And loving wrestling. And just get each other loving wrestling, man, because I love wrestling. Mahoney Games. I like WCW from 1990 to 1998, but I think the WWF was better from then on. Yeah, I agree. I think that the WWF was a lot better at that point. Once WWF started hitting a stride, especially with the Stone Cold era, when they had Stone Cold and Vince McMahon, which was the core, but then they had The Rock. But then they had Triple H. They had Shawn Michaels. They had so many damn good talent there. It was crazy. It was crazy how good they got. And then WCW, they had a lot of the older talent, but a lot of the older talent were not able to have as good a wrestling matches as WWE. So WCW's undercard was like phenomenal wrestling, but their main card wasn't the best wrestling. But you don't necessarily need the best wrestling. You just need people to care. If you get people to care, then that kind of matters more. So I always loved WCW up until the Stone Cold guy happened. And then when the Stone Cold guy happened, I did the back and forth stuff for a little bit. Then after I did a little bit of that back and forth stuff, I stuck with the WWE. And then we all know what happened from there. 2000, 2001, Vince McMahon bought WCW. He bought his own competition. And what can he do then? What can you do? What can anybody do? He owned it, and that is what it is at that point. It is what it is at that point. But the three wrestlers who got me into it was Hulk Hogan when I was a very young kid, and I didn't like him later, obviously. Then Eddie Guerrero because of the wrestling, because I'd never seen that type of wrestling before, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin because I'd never seen somebody with that type of character. I didn't get an ass kicker. Oh man, seeing an ass kicker like that, especially as good he is, and he can work it the way that he knows how to work it, man, shit. Stone Cold was the shit, guys. Stone Cold was the shit. And he very easily kept me in it. All right. So then moving on. Now, I had my three favorite wrestlers that really hooked me into pro wrestling. They really hooked me into pro wrestling. But now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the feuds that really got me into it. And I used my three favorite feuds from the three favorite guys that I have. And two of those are very obvious. One of them maybe not so obvious. Mahoney Games. What do you think started the Attitude Era? Some people say the Austin 316 promo. Some say Screwjob. Some say the NWO. I'm not sure. It's definitely an accumulation of all of the above. We have hindsight now, so we can look back on it. The Austin 316 promo is one of the biggest, most important promos, period. There may be people who can cut better promos than Stone Cold Steve Austin, but the mere fact that his promo had the effect on everybody who was watching it. Everybody who was watching it was like, Austin 316, Austin 316. They were holding up their Austin 316 signs, and the very next night, pay-per-views on a Sunday, the very next night, Stone Cold Steve Austin came out, and there were Austin 316 signs in the crowd. And this was before he had just switched over to Steve Austin, but nobody really knew what direction they were going to go until they started seeing him getting those types of reactions. Once he started getting those reactions, OMG, it was crazy. Now, couple that with, where were we? Some people say it was Austin 316 promo. Some say the Screwjob. Now, couple that with around the same time, or maybe a little bit earlier, 96, 97, Stone Cold's on the upswing. That's when Scott Hall and Nash are on the downswing in the WWF. So they're like, let's jump over to WCW where we're fresh, we're brand new. We don't have to prove ourselves or anything because we already have a name, somewhat of a name. So they jump over. And that creates waves in itself. Now, Austin 316 television shirts, t-shirts. Austin 316 t-shirts are still selling to this day. NWO t-shirts are still selling to this day. So those two arguments, I totally understand, are most likely probably... Hold on. Is he coming or not? I was going to let Boycat in, but I don't think that I don't think he wanted in here. He wanted in somewhere else. But anyway, so you have the Austin 316 shirts. You still have the NWO shirts. So Mahoney Games, it seems like those two have a very big part of it. Now, the screw job. Now, the screw job was huge in the marks perceptions. The marks, meaning us wrestling fans who dig a little bit deeper and get really deep into the wrestling. So a lot of the informed fans were into the screw job, but the screw job did take away Bret Hart from the WWF. Not like he was setting the world on fire. Great champion. He wasn't Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he had to have that match with Bret Hart. That I Quit match where Stone Cold puts him in the sharpshooter. Stone Cold's bleeding to death. And it's a legendary photo. So let me just look it up. There it is. It's a legendary picture. Did it work? Let's see. I gotta put it here and then there. Is that what it is? Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, we got it. So now you have you have Bret Hart. You have old Bret Hart over here. And he is doing his best to have a great, crazy match with old Stone Cold. And we see the pictures. I can't use any video, guys. I don't want any of these copyright shits coming after me and ruining my life because I copyrighted something or I used some copyrighted footage that ain't even no fucking important shit anyway. So, you had the screw job, and then if you think about the screw job happened, Bret went to WCW. What happened in the WWE and what was happening in the WWE at that time? Stone Cold on the way up. So if you think about wrestling, a good guy, a great good guy needs a bunch of different bad guys. He needs like the ultimate bad guy. And the screw job did create one of the worst or best, however you want to phrase it, heels ever. And that's Vince McMahon. Bret screwed Bret. So, would Stone Cold have been as over as he was without Vince McMahon? I don't think so. I think that the dynamic between Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin was huge. Now, would Stone Cold still have made a connection with people, though he only had like other normal wrestlers to wrestle? Definitely. I think Stone Cold would have gotten over no matter what. But the thing that amplified that was having an even better bad guy. And that's a bad guy that everybody legitimately hates. And who doesn't hate their boss? Who doesn't hate their boss? Who doesn't hate somebody who's trying to tell you what to do? They tried to make Stone Cold. He tried to get him to dress up and act like a champion. And Stone Cold's just an old beer-drinking redneck. He ain't about that shit. And most people, they ain't about that shit. So that was the perfect combination. And it seems like that combination, all three, with the... bless me. Sorry, guys. But it seems like that combination of all three really really created it, really happened, because it sucks that Bret Hart went to WCW and nothing happened to him except for he injured Goldberg, and that made me sad because I fucking love Goldberg. I fucking loved Goldberg. I don't love Goldberg now. I know what I love Goldberg now as a person, I guess, but I know what he is. Like he's he's not the best wrestler. He's kind of exposed at this point. Everybody knows that Bret could wrestle. Everybody knows that Goldberg could. No, Goldberg kicked Bret in the head. I'm sorry. I had those two backwards. But Goldberg kicked Bret in the head and stopped it to where Bret couldn't wrestle. But Bret couldn't. He wasn't really doing much anyway. So like he had to retire. But so I do love Goldberg. I do love Goldberg. But he's kind of exposed now. People know how how he performs. People know how he performs. He's 50-something years old, and he still performs exactly like he did when he was in his mid to late 30s. What does that tell you? Mahoney Games. That promo did, but I like the one he did in ECW. Check that one out if you have not seen it. Yes, Darnell. I'm sorry, Darnell. It wasn't Mahoney. Darnell. That promo did, but I like the one he did in ECW. I definitely like the one he did in ECW because he was shitting on WCW's booking at that time. And WCW's booker was Dusty Rhodes. And he does a little bit of a Dusty Rhodes impression during that promo. And he shits a little bit on Ric Flair. And he shits a little bit. I mean, the thing about the ECW promo is it's more realistic. But that's what ECW was at that time. They were trying to get people to be like, "Oh my God, this is so violent. This is crazy. I can't believe how this is going. Is this legit? Is this real? There's no way this is real life. No way. This is craziness." So yes, if you haven't checked out the ECW promo with Stone Cold Steve Austin, I recommend checking it out. He was stunning Steve Austin at the time in ECW. Was he still stunning Steve Austin? Probably. Mahoney Games. The Screwjob basically created the Vince McMahon character, which in turn made Steve Austin. Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it made Steve Austin, but it helped build Steve Austin to the point to where, like, to heights that has never been seen before or after that. Even John Cena is not Stone Cold over. Hulk Hogan wasn't Stone Cold. Stone Cold is just a different animal. But then again, maybe they're all pretty close to each other. Maybe it's just different perspectives as well. Mahoney Games, off topic, but does anyone remember the best shirt ever? It was Owen Hart. Austin 316 said, "I just broke your neck." Oh shit. I love it. Darnell. I don't hate my boss because she's kind of hot. You got to be nice to her then. Be nice to her. Keep your boss happy, Darnell. Keep your boss happy. You never know, brother. You never know. You definitely got to keep him happy. So we went through a good bit of our favorite wrestlers, and I figured it'd be cool to be able to go through some of the feuds that they were in. Some of our favorite feuds that they were in, and obviously the one big one, Stone Cold. Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. And now, this had just never been done before. Now, they've wrestled each other before, of course, but it wasn't built and promoted on a platform that Vince McMahon had built up to that point. He had been building his platform and getting networks and different networks to where the WWF was a national company. He broke in. He made that a national company, and now he has two wrestlers that the majority of people had no idea about. Maybe they had an idea about Hulk Hogan, but they were less likely to know about Andre the Giant. But maybe they did, because Andre the Giant was before Hogan's time. You see the lineage? He was huge in the 70s and 80s, and literally speaking too. So there's a big thing to be said for that. But what is it that really made people want to see it? It's because they were both built as undefeated wrestlers who were on top of their game, And it's the Giant versus this new big up-and-comer, Hulk Hogan. And Hulk Hogan had everything to prove because he had not, as far as anybody knew, he had never faced anybody like Andre the Giant. And that right there is just a big, big match, big money feel. Not the best physically at all. Andre was dying. He died like a year and a half, 2 years later. Maybe 4 years after that, I think. But, and Andre was dying, basically. And they had to work the match around his inabilities, and he had a lot of inabilities because physically he was not capable of doing what he could do. When Andre the Giant was younger, my God, he was crazy athletic, and he was crazy good. Andre was crazy good back in the day. But I remember this being one of the biggest feuds that got me hooked. And hey, big man, what's going on, man? We're over here talking about wrestling. What's your favorite feud that got you hooked into wrestling? What's your favorite wrestler that got you hooked? Was it a promotion that got you hooked? What was it that got you hooked on wrestling? If there's anything. Anyway, we'll go on back on over here. Mahoney Games. Goldberg isn't cool to me anymore because I know he's not really a badass. I mean, Jericho beat him in a real fight. Yeah. Exactly. That's why he's been exposed. Everybody knows what Goldberg is now. They know it. He used to be cool. Guys, I'm telling you, Stone Cold. Stone Cold's still cool to me. Damn it. But Goldberg, Goldberg was the man back in the day, dude. Goldberg, everybody wanted to be like Goldberg. Goldberg was the shit. Now, he didn't have as good of matches as Stone Cold. He didn't understand wrestling as good as Stone Cold. He wasn't Stone Cold. Stone Cold's 10 times better in every right. But Goldberg was great in his sense for that 3 or 4 years. Then when he went to WWE, it was the shits. But what are you going to do? Not really the shits. I guess they drew well and they made money, and Goldberg's still wrestling now, so how shitty could it be, right? I'm just using my wrestler wrestler standard. I'm yawning and I'm tired. It's not even 4 p.m., guys. Jesus Christ. Talib, that new haircut is so cute and fresh. Thank you, Talib. I appreciate that. It's not like the last time that I got my haircut because everybody was roasting me on the internet for my haircut last time. And I told you guys the story. I'll spare you guys the story about my last haircut. But the last time I got it trimmed, it did not. It will just say it didn't end up well. It didn't end up well at all. Rick Morris, like the original Four Horsemen too. I love the original Four Horsemen. But I do love the feud that they had with Dusty when they broke his arm in the car. Using the car door, and they broke his arm and they blurred it out. And they made it so violent and so realistic. They made it so realistic, it was crazy. It was crazy how realistic they made that shit. Then the next feud, of course, Mahoney. We were just talking about that. Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, Stone Cold Steve Austin did his part to get over and to make people care about him. However he made it happen, he made it happen. And then Vince McMahon did his part, whether it be on purpose or not. He screwed over Bret Hart. Bret Hart made sure that everybody knew that that was what was going on because Bret Hart had a documentary going on. And it seems like Bret Hart knew that he was trying to get out of his contract and he knew that things were going to go bad. So he was like, yeah, let's do a documentary on wrestling, on me wrestling. Seems like they already knew things weren't going to be going good. Almost seems like it's all a work and they're all working each other. Almost. I know we did have the episode where we were talking about if the Montreal Screwjob was a work or not, but there's no telling. But the Stone Cold and Vince McMahon match, like I actually was able to buy one of the pay-per-views, and I'm not really. When we were growing up, we were very poor kids, so we didn't have money to be able to buy pay-per-views. But I was able to convince my mom to get her to buy this pay-per-view, and I had to do all kinds of chores, all kinds of stuff to get it, and I was so excited. The pay-per-view was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, when Stone Cold and Vince McMahon wrestled each other in a cage. Of course, Vince McMahon got his ass kicked throughout majority of the match. And then right at the end, we had the Big Show debut. And the Big Show picked up Stone Cold and threw him out of the cage. And then as he was on his, he hit the cage, the whole side of the cage just opened up. Stone Cold fell onto the ground. Stone Cold won, but old Big Show and Vince McMahon were standing in the cage like, oh, I'm going to get you next time, Austin. That was one of my favorite memories from that. And then one of my favorite memories from Stone Cold was Stone Cold wrestling Kane the night after they had the first blood match. And of course, Kane's wearing a leather mask, probably not going to get bloody on his face. How you going to get him bloody? Most of his body's covered up from the burns. And he lost. Stone Cold lost because he got bloody. And then the very next night, he won that shit back. And I was all for it. Mahoney Games. I love tag teams. The Midnight Express with Cornette. Oh, hell yeah. The Rock and Roll Express. Oh, hell yeah. Just tag teams in general. And just to mention, the screw job was Cornette's idea. Yes, exactly. Cornette has such a mind for the business, and he knows. I pride myself in knowing a lot of the history of American professional wrestling, but Cornette lived it. He lived half of it. So you can't even take it away from Cornette, because Cornette knows. When you like, most people act like they know, but Cornette knows. Cornette definitely knows. And I'm sure that Cornette had a lot to do with that. A lot to do with that, especially from the dark side of the ring. And I know that we talked about that a couple months ago when they had the Montreal screw job, and we were talking about it or not. And it does seem like Cornette would be the one. Cornette would be the one that would tell them to do that. And then last but not least, Eddie Guerrero, who was always there. I always loved Eddie Guerrero. I was always a huge fan of Eddie Guerrero, following back from the WCW days all the way up until he came into the WWE with the Radicals. But he didn't really, he was doing Latino Heat, and he was dating China on television, and he had a bunch of different gimmicks and different things going for him. But then this feud right here was one of my favorite feuds that I had ever seen. These two were so damn good, and the matches were so damn brutal, and the matches were they were just so damn good, man. These guys whooped each other's asses, and they were working hard, man. They were working very, very hard. Very hard. And I absolutely loved that feud. And me, personally, I'm a big JBL fan. I'm a fucking huge JBL fan. Not so much Bradshaw. Never really felt it for Bradshaw. But when he changed his character to JBL, a rich Texan who moved to New York because he's better than that, man. And then having Eddie, who being the perfect good guy to fate. Oh, God, dude. JBL, man. So damn good. Mahoney Games, JBL doesn't get the respect he deserves. Thank you, Mahoney. Thank you, because I agree. JBL really doesn't get the respect that he deserves. He really doesn't get the respect that he deserves. That's just annoying. Christopher Barclough, thank you so much for liking the chat. What's up, Christopher Barclough? How are you? Lori jumping in from work. Hey, Lori. I know, I'm sorry we had to do an early episode, but, we got to do what we got to do sometimes. Darnell, Cool Breeze Anderson said, I liked the Hogan-Andre feud, but the NWA WCW came off more real to me. So I liked Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard and the Best of 7 series between Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff. Darnell, those are great. Those are great feuds. But the NWA and WCW did have more of a realistic style. And now you could look at AEW and you could see they are trying to distinguish themselves from WWE by having different styles on their television show, but it's very eclectic. It's a very eclectic group of styles right now. They haven't quite figured out, maybe this is just how the company is. I'm just theorizing about it. maybe they haven't figured out exactly what works for them right now. And they're just throwing out different people and seeing what sticks. We'll throw this on the wall. Does this stick? We'll throw this on the wall. Does it stick? Can we get up? Can we get more business out of it? Now, that's with politics aside, because there's always politics. So if somebody does start getting over, then they have politics that they have to deal with, because people do try to slow your momentum down whenever you are doing something positive like that. So, very interesting stuff, though. Very interesting stuff. Christopher Barkloff, Justin Huck Bradshaw versus The Undertaker. Monday Night Raw 1996. I bet that was a pretty good match. I don't know anything about it, though, Christopher. I don't know anything about that match. I have not seen that in a very long time. Christopher Barkloff. Chris Benoit versus Booker T. Best of 7 series from WCW title. Finale at the Great American Bash 1999. Yeah, and that Chris Benoit versus Booker T Best of 7 series is legendary. I remember seeing their second match, or was it the first one? I don't remember what it was, but we got kicked out of our home when we were kids, and we had to stay in a hotel. And I remember running into the hotel trying to make sure that I could watch SmackDown or Thunder. Making sure that I could watch Thunder and see the best of 7, so I could see who's going to take control in the best of 7, Booker T or Chris Benoit. And I think that night doesn't even matter to me. All I remember is it was such a good feud. They were so good. Those guys were on another level, man. Christopher Barkloff. Hulk Hogan is the biggest politician in pro wrestling. Well, that's what everybody says. Apparently, he's really good at it. I mean, he is one of the most over pro wrestlers in history. And, that's just part of the game. What are you going to do, guys? What are you going to do? There ain't much you can do except for just keep on keeping on. But that was my list of my favorite wrestlers. And I'm glad that you guys were able to share some of yours. And I'm glad that you were able to join me, because I know that it's a much earlier show than what we normally do, but I feel like sometimes we're just going to have to do these shows. Now the Friday shows are obviously going to be a lot later. Monday shows probably earlier. Tuesday shows probably a little bit later. Wednesday shows probably earlier. And then I'll see how the schedule works out, though. We will see how the schedule works out, and there's no telling. That's awesome. That's a good name. It works. It's very eclectic. Christopher Barkloff, my favorite is always will be Bret Hart. The best there ever was, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret Hart. And on that note, guys, we'll finish up this episode. This was a fun episode, but I'm going to hop on off of here. I'm not feeling too good. I got to freaking blow my nose too much. I'm nasally. My body's starting to ache. I hope I'm not getting sick again. I just took some antibiotics and some Dayquil, so that I don't fall asleep right now. But I'm not feeling good. So hopefully I'll feel good tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be an iffy show tomorrow. If I can get it in, I'll have to get it in early, but I'll let you guys know. I love you guys. I hope you all have a great night, great day. And I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.